We may not have our ban list yet, but that's not gonna stop me from making a top 10 best decks video. So I'll be covering what I believe are the best decks and most reliable decks to run this format until at least we get our ban list. Technically, I'm going to be covering 11 decks because one of them doesn't really exist yet. But of course, before this video starts, you already know the drill. Please do me a little favor and smash both the like and subscribe button for me real quick. And as a reward, here's a picture of a pancake. Alrighty, so in the number 10 position, I have a deck that makes me want to commit Toaster Bath every single time I encounter it, and that would be Runick Stun. I hate this deck from the bottom of my heart because it really does the exact opposite of what this game should be about. And that is fair and healthy back and forth interactions between players. Now, who needs that anymore? The deck is all about minimizing interactions, floodgating your opponent to death, banishing cards, and not allowing him to play. Not my cup of tea, as I prefer decks with a higher IQ where I don't really feel like a monkey when I'm playing them. I'm full of shit. But yeah, I'd be lying if I actually said that this deck was bad whatsoever. Next up is a deck that I kind of suck with, but I do recognize that it's good, and that would be Dragon Link. Not necessarily a deck that makes a lot of negates, but it makes like a decent board and it has a pretty nice follow-up usually. You can still end on Borl and Dragon, Savage Dragon, and Bestial Dispatter, which is actually a really good card. Next up is a deck that again doesn't really exist at the moment, but will exist very soon. I'm talking about Vanquish Soul, a deck that can actually play with 1 or 2 cards and can also play a lot of hand traps and floodgates. It's pretty fun and interesting to play, so if you want something that is different for a change, I really recommend this deck. Alright, after that, I'm gonna have a really controversial one because I think a lot of players are going to be kind of wondering why it's so low on the list, but I'm going to be putting Purrely here. It's clearly a powerful deck because the boss monster is insane, but the issue is that when you are not really getting to your boss monster, the deck is really bad. And I guess you can still do some things like Happy OTK or Beauty Control or Zeus Control, but no, it's not good. Might as well play Zodiac at this point now, man. And people are respecting Purrely a lot right now by main decking Kaiju, Santa Claus, and even Kurikara, so I'm kind of skeptical about it, at least at the moment. The deck isn't perfect, but also very far from awful. Alright, number 6 is either a safe call or a really dangerous one if you're a risk taker, and that would be Labrynth. The deck changed quite a lot because there are some builds that are actually less trap heavy, that are actually playing the furniture cards such as Chandra and Stovey, so that they can actually get a trap card on their opponent's turn, so that they can actually start playing as soon as their first turn starts, going second. The deck plays less reactive trap cards, less floodgates, so it's actually more aggressive, but actually also less defensive, but they can compensate by playing a lot of really aggressive cards, and also turboing out their really nasty cards with Coup Clock. So they can turbo out the virus trap cards, different dimension ground, dimensional barrier, etc., which is really insane. And it also has an infinite grind game, so if you can actually make it past turn 1, you're usually going to be winning the game. And after that, we've got Despia, which is actually stronger than ever. Most hand traps aren't really good against this deck, but I will say Ash and Bell are insane against it. Despia is only truly broken when it's turboing out the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock, otherwise it's relatively fair, but the issue is that it does introduce a weakness to your strategy. The thing about the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock is that if it goes through, your opponent cannot special summon for the turn, and there's pretty much nothing you can really do about it once it resolves, so that's usually a game-winning play. Moral of the story, play pure Gimmick Puppet so that you can actually win against Despia going second. There's only one small little issue, as the deck kinda sucks ass. Anyways, in the number 4 quote-unquote position is Mathmech, which I want to consider is a really safe and, pretty clean call. It can play a lot of hand traps, obviously, or board breakers, can play with 1 card or 2 cards, whatever, so it's usually a pretty decent deck for any new learner too, honestly. And also that deck is either you have it or you don't have it. There's kind of like no in-between, so when you look at your hand, you know if you can actually play the game or not. Clearly a lot of positive things to say about it because it actually got new support from the latest set, Cyberstorm Access, with the new Firewall monsters, the Neo Tempest Terahertz, as well as Cybers the Zabworm, so it's definitely a really good deck. Next up is Spright, yet another really safe call. It's somewhat easy to play and build, and there's a lot of ways to do it. There's the Runick version, the For Hire version, and there's also the Melfi version, which is actually the most popular. It's very minimalistic. All you really need, I believe, is just 2 Melfi monsters and 1 Melfi Xyz in your extra deck, and you're good to go. And it's also a deck that can consistently give Ibli to your opponent, which is really relevant right now, especially against Kashtira. Okay, now we have what used to be arguably the best deck according to pro players last format. I'm talking about Naturia Runick, a deck that's always going to be good in spell-heavy formats because of Naturia Beast. And that deck doesn't just end on Naturia Beast, it's Naturia Beast plus like Sunflower as well as another Naturia monster, the Runick cards, and a lot of recursion. And next up is Super Heavy Samurai, which is not really a combo deck, even though it has a lot of really nasty combos, but more of like a mid-range deck because it can play like 17 or something hand traps. The combos are very linear and very powerful, and you can also do them with one single card, but the issue is that you can't really play spells and traps in that deck. You can, however, circumvent that inconvenience by playing really interesting tech cards and, you know, board breakers that are monsters, whatever cards that allow you to get rid of floodgates, so you won't really have to worry about that. And the thing about Super Heavy Samurai is that it is the kind of deck that if you do not choose to respect, you will always lose to it. And finally, in my 0th position, because it's a top 11 video, I'm actually going to be putting Kashtira here because it is the deck to beat this format. The deck was already the best deck last format and it didn't even get hit by the ban list, so obviously the deck is still really good right now. Arise Heart still exists, which I don't really understand how that's even a thing, and also you can zone lock your opponent for 5. You can also look at your opponent's extra deck and make him banish cards, you can do a lot of really nasty things, the deck can play a lot of hand traps, board breakers, whatever you want. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say for this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about what do you think are the best decks this format, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.